Well, a new report suggests deep web activity is increasing as the war in Ukraine escalates. The consulting firm Accenture found people are selling information on both Russian and Ukrainian entities, things like databases and breached networks. Those are tools that could be used in a cyber attack. Accenture's global financial services security lead, Valerie Abend, joins us to discuss the potential for Russian cyber attacks. Thank you so much for joining us, Valerie. We're seeing more of those attacks targeting Ukrainian banks and places like that. Is Russia laying the groundwork for something even worse? And what does that look like?
Well, Jerika and Vlad, thank you so much for having me here today. Glad to be here with both of you. And, you know, it's really hard to say what the future will bring, but what we've seen through our research of over a decade of exploring the criminal underground is really a shift in the approach along three different things. The first is, this used to be this criminal underground motivated by financial crime to extort money from their victims. Mm-hmm. But now suddenly there's all this talk about shifting and dissecting themselves across geopolitical lines and ideological, so pro-Russia or pro-Ukraine, and using these very sophisticated capabilities to target. The second thing is a change in pricing. So what used to be an attack, you know, for $10,000 or maybe even $200,000, we're now seeing offers of $5 million to $10 million to hire these criminal services to attack.
Why is that?
I think there's just a real interest in essentially gathering these capabilities, and that's why we're really telling all of the businesses out there to shore up their defenses now in advance of anything, you know, very serious happening.
So, Valerie, I was struck by, over the weekend, reading in the New York Times that fears in the United States over potential attacks by Russia could include nuclear, chemical attacks, and cyber. I thought that was fascinating that they lumped cyber attacks in with nuclear and chemical warfare. You've been monitoring deep web activity since January. What have you seen in that deep web activity that gives you pause, that gives you concern?
So I think the big concern in the criminal underground is you're talking about really significant, sophisticated capabilities. They've been used, you know, in the past. And the chatter has shifted not only, as I said, to geopolitical lines, but there's been increasing chatter around targeting critical infrastructure. And critical infrastructure is really about systems that support our daily lives. These are financial institutions, hospitals, water, utilities. And so, you know, it's really important because, you know, more than 90% of this infrastructure is actually owned and operated by the private sector. And that's why it's just so important that not only do they shore up their defenses, but they actually participate in the public-private partnerships that we have in place.
Do these intelligence warnings matter? Do you think they prevent some of these attacks that you're talking about?
Well, I think what really matters is that we stay vigilant. You know, we've been talking with everything from the cybersecurity teams all the way up to the C-suite about making this a priority, not just now in this one moment, right? Don't treat this kind of like a flash in the pan crisis, but almost like a new world order. Think about it almost as we think about the pandemic. Keep changing your practices and evolving because the cyber threat actors are also going to evolve. And so it's really important that they keep vigilant, that they shore up their systems now, and that they share information if they see information, just as we're sharing information through this report.
So Valerie, one of the things you just mentioned, the New World Order, I think a lot of people would agree that this Russian invasion has upended the world order, and now many countries are probably looking to either upgrade or upscale their cybersecurity infrastructure. We saw that here with the Colonial Pipeline disaster. What's your advice on how those countries, specifically NATO countries, can shore up their defenses?
So I mentioned the public-private partnership. This means, you know, sharing information, you know, across NATO countries, but between businesses and government particularly, because the target may not be a government-run system, it might be a private sector-run system. And so the way we do that is we say, first, identify if there's any gaps in your systems now, right? Close those gaps, patch those gaps. Additionally, you know, there's a lot of access to these systems. Customers, employees, contractors really need to make sure that access is only to those who truly need it, and that we close that access and monitor it as best as possible. Have incident response plans in place. Usually they'll have a contract with a company like Accenture so that they can surge their capability if they do experience an incident and practice your crisis management protocols so that you can be resilient in the face of actually experiencing an attack.
Are we here in the United States in danger of an attack, a cyber attack by the Russians, or do you feel that we're protected? We can be better, but that we're, for the most part, we're in solid shape should they attempt?
I never feel comfortable. I work in the cybersecurity world, and so what I say is never sort of say that you're comfortable. Always be doing that next thing. Systems are changing all the time, right? We have a huge digital footprint that keeps evolving, new systems online, and so it's just important that we see this as a broad ecosystem. We treat it like a team sport, and that we all work together, because it really depends, on what that attack will be and how we respond collectively.
Yeah, it sounds like spend the time and the money now so you don't have to deal with it later.
That's right.
Thank you.
Important advice. Valerie Abend, thank you very much, as always. We appreciate it. Really insightful.